Baseball's darkest chapter includes tragic losses, from the heartbreaking tragedy of Ray Chapman
Fantastic. It was a dream. And really important to me.
to the shattered dreams of rising stars like Jose Fernandez, whose lives ended far too soon. These moments remind us that even heroes on the field are not invincible. Let's tell you stories that shook the sport and left fans in stunned silence. Ray Chapman. Let's begin with the most tragic and historically significant case in Major League Baseball history. Ray Chapman is the only MLB player confirmed to have died as a direct result of an in-game incident at the Major League level, making his story both unique and eternally heartbreaking in the annals of America's pastime. Raymond Johnson. Chapman was 29 years old when his life was cut tragically short on August 17, 1920. But to understand the full magnitude of this tragedy, we need to paint a picture of who Ray Chapman was, as both a player and a person. Chapman wasn't just another face in the Cleveland Indians lineup. He was a cornerstone of the franchise, a player whose speed and defensive prowess had made him one of the most respected shortstops of his era. Born in Beaver Dam, Kentucky, Chapman had worked his way up through the minor leagues with the determination and grit that characterized so many players of his generation. By the time he reached the majors in 1912, he had already established himself as someone special. Chapman had a .278 career batting average and led the AL in runs scored, 84, and walks, 84, in 1918, statistics that tell only part of the story of his impact on the game. The fateful day of August 16, 1920, began like any other game day at the Polo Grounds in New York. The Cleveland Indians were facing off against the New York Yankees in what should have been just another regular season contest. Chapman stepped into the batter's box in the fifth inning, facing Yankees pitcher Carl Mays, a submarine-style pitcher known for his aggressive approach and willingness to pitch inside. What happened next would change baseball forever. The pitch struck his temple, causing a skull fracture. He collapsed on the field, was carried off, and taken to St. Lawrence Hospital in Manhattan. Witnesses described a sickening sound as the ball made contact with Chapman's head, a sound that would haunt those present for the rest of their lives. Despite surgical efforts, Chapman died at 4:40 a.m. the next day. The news of his death sent shockwaves throughout the baseball world and beyond. Here was a young man at the peak of his career, a player who had been looking forward to the rest of the season and beyond, whose life had been snuffed out by a single pitch. The circumstances surrounding the pitch itself became a source of controversy that persists to this day. The pitch was likely a spitball, and the incident occurred in poor lighting, contributing to Chapman's inability to dodge the ball. The spitball, a legal pitch at the time, was notoriously difficult to control and often moved in unpredictable ways. Combined with the poor lighting conditions at the Polo Grounds and the fact that baseballs weren't changed as frequently as they are today, Chapman likely never saw the pitch coming. The aftermath of Chapman's death extended far beyond the immediate grief of his family and teammates. His death prompted MLB to ban the spitball and introduce cleaner balls for better visibility, with batting helmets adopted decades later. After Ray, Tyler Skaggs was another hero who lost his life in ground. Tyler Skaggs. The death of Tyler Wayne Skaggs on July 1, 2019, sent shockwaves through the baseball world and beyond, marking one of the most devastating losses in recent memory. At just 27 years old, Skaggs was entering what should have been the prime of his career, a talented left-handed pitcher whose future seemed limitless. Instead, his story became a cautionary tale about the hidden struggles that even our heroes face away from the bright lights of the stadium. Skaggs' journey to the major leagues was one of determination and perseverance, a testament to his character and love for the game. Drafted by the Angels in 2009, traded to the Diamondbacks, and returned to the Angels, Skaggs had a 4.41 career ERA over 520.2 innings. These numbers, while they might seem modest to some, told the story of a pitcher who was still developing, still reaching for his potential, still believing that his best days were ahead of him. But fate has a way of bringing people home, and when the Angels reacquired Skaggs in 2014, it felt like destiny. Here was a young man returning to the organization that had first believed in him, ready to fulfill the promise they had seen in him years earlier. His teammates embraced him, and he quickly became known not just for his pitching ability, but for his infectious personality and his love for music. The tragic events of July 1, 2019 began to unfold in what should have been just another road trip. The Angels were in Texas to play the Rangers, and Skaggs was scheduled to start the next day's game. He had been looking forward to the outing, as he always did, preparing mentally and physically for another opportunity to take the mound in a major league uniform. Skaggs was found unresponsive in his hotel room in Southlake, Texas, before a game against the Texas Rangers. The initial confusion and disbelief gave way to a more complex and troubling picture as details emerged. An autopsy revealed he died from asphyxia due to a fentanyl overdose, with alcohol and oxycodone also in his system. The death was ruled accidental. These revelations shocked not only his teammates and coaches, but also his family and friends, who had no idea about the struggles he was facing with substance abuse. The immediate aftermath of Skaggs' death was heart-wrenching to witness. His teammates, who had been preparing for what they thought would be a routine game against the Rangers, instead found themselves grappling with the sudden loss of a friend and colleague. The scheduled game was postponed, but more importantly, an entire organization was left to wonder how they had missed the signs of Tyler's struggle.
The team all got together a couple times, and some of the guys spoke, but I think most importantly, in the end, we were able to talk about Tyler and laugh about some of the stories and some of the goofy things he did, listen to some of his music. So it was good.
Manager Brad Ausmus's emotional words captured the essence of how the team was coping by remembering Tyler not for how he died, but for how he lived, the stories they shared, the music he loved, the goofy moments that had made him such a beloved teammate. These became the foundation for how they would honor his memory. Then we have Jose Fernandez. The death of Jose Delfin Fernandez Gomez on September 25, 2016 represented one of the most devastating losses in modern baseball history. At just 24 years old, Jose Fernandez wasn't simply a promising player with potential. He was already a bona fide superstar, a pitcher whose talent and charisma had captivated not just Miami Marlins fans, but baseball enthusiasts around the world. Born in Cuba, Jose's path to the major leagues was fraught with danger and uncertainty. His family's escape from Cuba was the stuff of Hollywood movies, a harrowing journey across treacherous waters in search of freedom and opportunity. The young Jose had already shown his heroic character during that voyage, diving into the ocean to save his mother when she fell overboard during their escape attempt. Fernandez's accomplishments in his brief but brilliant career were nothing short of extraordinary. 2013, NL Rookie of the Year, two-time All-Star with a 2.58 career ERA and 589 strikeouts in 471.1 innings. These numbers, impressive as they are, fail to capture the complete picture of Jose's impact on the game and on everyone who watched him play. In an era when baseball was often criticized for being too serious, too stoic, Jose brought a level of enthusiasm and passion that reminded everyone why they had fallen in love with the sport in the first place.
Fantastic. It was a dream. And really important to me. I think we're important to me and my family. We're important to the people that that appreciate this amazing country and then respect it, because I think it's an honor to be an American citizen.
This quote, from when Jose became an American citizen, encapsulates the gratitude and appreciation he felt for the opportunities that baseball and America had provided him. On the field, Fernandez was simply electric. His pitching style was a combination of raw power and refined technique that left batters guessing and fans on the edge of their seats. He had the rare ability to dominate games single-handedly, but more importantly, he had the charisma to elevate everyone around him. The tragic events of September 25, 2016 began what should have been a relaxing evening for the young superstar. Fernandez died in a high-speed boating accident off Miami Beach when his boat crashed into a jetty. He was with two friends, both of whom also died. The details of that night remain somewhat unclear, but what is certain is that 3 young men lost their lives in a completely preventable tragedy. The investigation that followed revealed troubling details. An autopsy showed alcohol and cocaine in his system, though it was unclear if he was operating the boat. These revelations cast a shadow over Jose's memory and served as a stark reminder that even our heroes are human, with flaws and poor decisions that can have tragic consequences. The news of Jose's death hit the baseball world like a thunderbolt. Here was a player who seemed to embody everything positive about the sport: youth, talent, enthusiasm, and success, suddenly gone in an instant. His teammates were devastated, his fans were heartbroken, and the entire Miami community felt as though they had lost a son. Our next story reveals how dreams get shattered hours after triumph. Nick Adenhart. The story of Nicholas James Adenhart is perhaps the most heartbreakingly ironic of all the tragedies we'll discuss today. At just 22 years old, Nick had finally achieved his lifelong dream of establishing himself as a major league pitcher, only to have his life tragically cut short mere hours after what should have been one of the most triumphant moments of his young career. Nick Adenhart's journey to the major leagues was one of perseverance and determination that exemplified everything we admire about professional athletes. A top prospect, Adenhart made 4 MLB starts, with his final outing being a 6-inning scoreless performance. This final statistic tells only part of the story of a young man who had overcome significant obstacles to reach the pinnacle of his profession. Growing up, Adenhart had shown exceptional promise as a pitcher, the kind of talent that catches the attention of professional scouts from an early age. The Los Angeles Angels recognized this potential and invested in his future, believing that he could become a cornerstone of their pitching rotation for years to come. The evening of April 8, 2009 represented everything that Nick Adenhart had worked for throughout his young life. Taking the mound against the Oakland Athletics at Angel Stadium, he delivered the performance of a lifetime, pitching 6 scoreless innings and demonstrating the poise and skill that had made him such a highly regarded prospect.
Summoned his father the day before and told his dad, better come here because something special is going to happen. And after the game last night, we had the opportunity to speak with Nick. He was so elated because of what Soch had to say to him about his performance, the fact that he felt like a major leaguer.
The elation described in this tribute from his agent, Scott Boras, captures the pure joy that Nick felt after his stellar performance. This was a young man who had finally proven to himself, his coaches, and the baseball world that he belonged in the major leagues. The confidence he felt after that game, the sense that he had finally arrived, makes what happened next all the more tragic. The tragedy that followed was as sudden as it was senseless. Hours after pitching 6 scoreless innings against the Oakland Athletics, Adenhart was killed when a drunk driver ran a red light and struck the car he was in. 2 other passengers also died. The collision occurred at an intersection in Fullerton, California, transforming what should have been a celebration into an unthinkable tragedy. The driver was later convicted of second-degree murder, a charge that reflected the heinous nature of his decision to drive under the influence. This wasn't simply an accident, it was the result of someone's selfish and reckless choice that cost 3 young people their lives and devastated countless families and friends. The next name on our list is Luis Valbuena. At 33 years old, when his life was tragically cut short, Valbuena had already achieved more than most players could ever dream of: an 11-year major league career, millions of dollars in earnings, and the respect of teammates and fans across multiple organizations. Yet his death in December 2018 reminds us that even success and experience cannot protect us from the dangers that exist in the world beyond the baseball diamond. Luis Valbuena's journey to major league stardom began in Venezuela, a country that has produced an incredible number of talented baseball players over the decades. Valbuena played for 5 MLB teams, with a career 226 batting average and 114 home runs over 11 seasons.
Luis Valbuena had the big shot tonight. Is there a better feeling than a walk-off home run?
Oh my God, unbelievable. I feel so good, you know, try to win the game. He threw me good pitch to hit and looking for the corner, and I hit it good.
You did.
The pure joy in Valbuena's voice after hitting a walk-off home run demonstrates the passion he maintained for the game even after 11 years in the majors. This wasn't a jaded veteran going through the motions. This was a player who still felt the same excitement about succeeding in clutch situations that he had experienced as a rookie. By 2018, Valbuena had established himself as a reliable veteran presence for the Los Angeles Angels. His experience and leadership were as valuable as his on-field contributions, and he had become the kind of player that younger teammates looked to for guidance and advice. The tragic events of December 6, 2018 transformed what should have been a routine trip into an unthinkable nightmare. Valbuena and teammate Jose Castillo died in a car crash in Venezuela while playing winter ball. Their vehicle was ambushed by robbers who placed rocks on the road to force a stop, leading to the fatal crash. This wasn't simply a traffic accident or a case of mechanical failure. This was a criminal act that cost 2 men their lives. The robbery attempt that led to their deaths represents one of the harsh realities of life in certain parts of the world, where economic desperation can lead to violence and tragedy. The fact that criminals would target returning baseball players who were viewed as symbols of success and hope in their communities adds another layer of senselessness to an already incomprehensible tragedy. Apart from Luis, Jose Castillo's death shook the world. Jose Castillo. The story of Jose Castillo Rondon is intrinsically linked with that of Luis Valbuena, as these 2 Venezuelan players met their tragic end together on that fateful December night in 2018. Yet Castillo's individual journey through professional baseball deserves its own recognition and remembrance. At 37 years old, he was a veteran who had experienced both the heights of major league success and the challenges of trying to extend a career in the later stages of his playing days. Castillo played 4 seasons with the Pittsburgh Pirates, hitting .250 .354 with 39 home runs. These statistics, compiled primarily between 2004 and 2008, represent the peak years of his major league career. During this time, he established himself as a reliable infielder who could contribute both offensively and defensively, the kind of solid, steady player that every major league roster needs. Winter ball in Venezuela represented more than just an opportunity to continue playing for Castillo. It was a homecoming, a chance to reconnect with his roots and to play in front of family and friends who had supported his journey from the beginning. Castillo died in the same car crash as Valbuena in Venezuela, a tragedy that robbed the baseball world of two experienced professionals who were giving back to their homeland. The circumstances of their deaths, killed by criminals who had placed obstacles on the road in an attempted robbery, highlight the harsh realities that exist beyond the relative safety of professional baseball stadiums. The fact that both Castillo and Valbuena were targeted together adds another dimension of tragedy to their deaths. These weren't random victims. They were recognizable figures in Venezuelan society, former major league players whose success had made them symbols of hope and achievement in their homeland. The criminals who caused their deaths weren't just taking two lives, they were destroying two examples of what was possible through hard work, talent, and dedication. For the Pirates organization, Castillo's death represented the loss of a former player who had contributed to their franchise during some challenging years. While he may not have been the most celebrated player in team history, he had been a professional who had given his best effort every day he put on a Pirates uniform. His death served as a reminder of the human connections that exist between players and the organizations they represent, connections that extend long after a player's time with a team has ended. Let's move to the next name on our list. Yordano Ventura. The death of Yordano Ventura Hernandez on January 22, 2017 represented one of the most devastating losses in Kansas City Royals history and robbed baseball of one of its most promising young stars. At just 25 years old, Ventura had already established himself as a key contributor to one of the most memorable championship runs in recent memory, yet his death reminds us that talent and success provide no protection against the randomness of tragedy. Yordano Ventura's story begins in the Dominican Republic, a country that has produced an incredible number of major league players over the decades. Like so many young Dominican prospects, Ventura grew up dreaming of playing professional baseball, seeing the sport as his pathway to success and his opportunity to provide a better life for his family. What set Ventura apart from other prospects wasn't just his talent, but the combination of his devastating fastball and his fierce competitive spirit. Ventura was a key contributor to the Royals' 2015 World Series title, with a 3.89 career ERA and 470 strikeouts in 547.2 innings. These numbers tell only part of the story of a pitcher who had established himself as an ace-caliber talent while still in his early 20s. The Kansas City Royals of the mid-2010s were a franchise that had been transformed from perennial losers into championship contenders, and Ventura played a crucial role in that transformation.
Is he like a little brother?
Yeah, I have to take care of him every time. But it's okay, I like it.
But you love me.
That's what I said. I love you, but I have to take care of you every time.
This playful exchange captures the personality that made Ventura so beloved by his teammates. The 2015 World Series championship run represented the pinnacle of Ventura's career and one of the most memorable team achievements in Kansas City sports history. The Royals had waited 30 years to win another championship, and Ventura's contributions to that title made him a permanent part of franchise lore. The tragic events of January 22, 2017 began as what should have been a routine drive on a Dominican Republic highway. Ventura died in a single-car accident in the Dominican Republic when his Jeep overturned on a highway. No alcohol or drugs were found in his system, and poor road conditions were cited as a factor. The circumstances of Ventura's death make it all the more tragic because there was no reckless behavior, no poor decision-making, no underlying health issues that contributed to the accident. This was simply a case of being in the wrong place at the wrong time, of poor road conditions and bad luck combining to create a devastating outcome. The randomness of his death serves as a stark reminder of how quickly life can change, regardless of age, success, or future potential. Our list continues with Darryl Kyle. The death of Darryl Andrew Kyle on June 22, 2002 shocked the baseball world and served as a sobering reminder that heart disease can strike anyone, regardless of age, physical condition, or athletic ability. At 33 years old, Kyle was in what should have been the prime of his career, an established veteran pitcher who had overcome early struggles to become one of the most respected players in the game. Darryl Kyle's journey through professional baseball was one of evolution and growth, a testament to the power of perseverance and the ability to overcome early setbacks. Kyler was a three-time All-Star who threw a no-hitter in 1993 with a 3.91 career ERA over 2,162.2 innings. Early in his career with the Houston Astros, Kyle had shown flashes of brilliance but had struggled with consistency and command. Rather than allowing these early challenges to derail his career, he had worked tirelessly to refine his approach, improve his conditioning, and develop the mental toughness necessary to succeed at the highest level of professional baseball. The no-hitter that Kyle threw on September 8, 1993 against the New York Mets represents one of the pinnacle achievements of his career. Throwing a no-hitter requires not just exceptional stuff and command, but also mental fortitude, the ability to handle increasing pressure as the game progresses, and a certain amount of luck. The morning of June 22, 2002 began like any other game day for the Cardinals as they prepared to face the Chicago Cubs at Wrigley Field. Kyle was scheduled to start that day's game, and as was his routine, he should have been at the ballpark early, going through his pre-game preparation and getting ready to take the mound for his team. Kyle was found dead in his Chicago hotel room due to a heart attack caused by 90% blockage in 2 coronary arteries. He was discovered after failing to appear for a game against the Cubs. The medical examination revealed the extent of the cardiovascular disease that had been silently threatening his life, likely for some time, without any obvious symptoms or warning signs. The discovery of such extensive coronary artery disease in a professional athlete was particularly shocking because it challenged assumptions about the cardiovascular health of elite competitors. Kyler had been subject to regular physical examinations as part of his professional baseball career, yet the severity of his condition had gone undetected. Just like Darryl, Corey Lidle's death was shocking for baseball fans. Corey Lidle. The death of Corey Fulton Lidle on October 11, 2006, represents one of the most unique and tragic losses in baseball history. Unlike the other stories we've explored today, Lidle's death wasn't the result of a car accident, illness, or criminal activity. It was the consequence of pursuing a passion for aviation that ultimately cost him his life. At 34 years old, Lidle had just completed what would be his final season in Major League Baseball, and his death in a plane crash over New York City shocked the baseball world while highlighting the risks that can come with pursuing hobbies and interests outside of professional sports. Corey Lidle's baseball career was characterized by journeyman professionalism and the kind of determination that allowed him to carve out a successful 11-year career despite never being considered a superstar. Lidle pitched for 7 MLB teams with a 4.57 career ERA over 322 innings. Beyond baseball, Lidle had developed a passion for aviation that had become an increasingly important part of his life. Flying represented something different from the pressures and demands of professional baseball. It was a hobby that provided him with a sense of freedom and personal accomplishment that was entirely separate from his athletic career. Lidle had earned his pilot's license and had become an accomplished aviator, often flying his own aircraft during the off-season and sometimes even during the season when team schedules allowed. His love of flying wasn't unusual among professional athletes, many of whom pursue aviation as a hobby that provides both practical transportation benefits and personal satisfaction. The tragic events of October 11, 2006, began as what should have been an enjoyable afternoon flight over New York City. Lidle, a licensed pilot, died when his small Cirrus SR-20 plane crashed into a high-rise building in Manhattan during a sightseeing flight. His flight instructor, also on board, died in the crash. The circumstances of the crash were particularly tragic because they occurred during what was meant to be a recreational flight. Lidle wasn't rushing to get somewhere for a business commitment or trying to navigate through dangerous weather conditions. He was simply enjoying his passion for flying and sharing that experience with his instructor. The crash occurred in Manhattan, one of the most densely populated areas in the world, which added another dimension of concern and tragedy to the incident. The sight of a small aircraft crashing into a building in New York City inevitably brought back memories of September 11, 2001, creating additional anxiety and fear among residents and observers. While this was clearly an accident rather than a terrorist attack, the visual similarities were unavoidable and added to the emotional impact of the tragedy. And let's end our list with Steve Beckler. The death of Stephen Scott Beckler on February 17, 2003, represents one of the most preventable and tragic losses in baseball history. At just 23 years old, Beckler was a young pitcher with dreams of establishing himself in the major leagues, only to have his life cut short by complications related to a legal but dangerous supplement that he had been using to enhance his performance and physical condition. His death became a watershed moment that highlighted the risks associated with performance-enhancing substances and led to significant changes difference in how professional sports organizations approach player health and safety. Steve Beckler's story is one of a young player trying to make the most of his opportunity in professional baseball. Beckler made 3 MLB appearances in 2002 and was a promising prospect in the Orioles system. While his major league experience was limited, he represented the dreams and aspirations of countless young players who work tirelessly to reach the highest level of their sport. The tragic events of February 17, 2003 began during what should have been a routine spring training workout in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Beckler collapsed during a spring training workout in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. His death was attributed to heat stroke, exacerbated by the use of ephedra, a banned weight loss supplement, leading to organ failure. His body temperature reached 108 degrees Fahrenheit. The circumstances of Beckler's collapse were particularly tragic because they occurred during the kind of routine conditioning work that is a standard part of every professional athlete's preparation. Spring training is typically a time of optimism and hope when players report to camp with dreams of making the team and contributing to success during the upcoming season. For Beckler, what should have been an opportunity to impress coaches and secure his place on the roster instead became a medical emergency that would ultimately cost him his life. The combination of ephedra use, intense physical exertion, and hot Florida weather created a perfect storm of conditions that proved fatal. Stimulant effects of ephedra likely contributed to an elevated heart rate and increased body temperature, while the physical demands of the workout pushed his body beyond its limits. When his core body temperature reached 108 degrees, his organs began to fail, and despite medical intervention, he could not be saved. Which death was the most tragic in your opinion? Share in the comments and click on then cards on screen for more.